Recorded live on the turf at Mad Lab Training Studio in Eldersburg, Maryland. This is the Time to Win podcast with Alex and Dan. Now let's get this podcast started.
So, wow, I got a lot to talk about today.
It sounds like it.
So, turns out that wasp picture that I showed you, those are actually not eggs.
So, is that caterpillar safe?
Nope, it's doomed.
Well, if those are not eggs, then it's not going to be eaten from babies, at least.
Yep, yeah, it is, actually. In fact, it's too late for the caterpillar because those are the cocoons that the larvae place their cocoons on the outside. That means the wasp has already laid its eggs inside the caterpillar. The larvae have hatched. They have consumed, for the most part, consumed the caterpillar.
So that thing's already been eaten?
Basically, it's already been eaten. However, it remains alive long enough for the baby wasps to hatch. So it's on life support right now, courtesy of the wasps. So that's pretty cool.
Well, technically, don't they say like bugs don't have nervous pain receptors?
Yeah, I don't buy that.
I don't know if I do either.
I don't buy that. Look what I've got.
Just a tunneling dog.
I've got a little tiny dog. You know, Dan, that dog, it's not a boy dog though. It's a girl dog. Mm-hmm. And I was going to say that dog is all prick and toenails, but that would be wrong gender. So
a little bit.
Right. So anyway,
Mike, I need my Michael.
Do you need to? Mike told me I needed to turn mine on.
It is on.
Oh,
Am I
Dan,
doing something wrong?
I can hear you. I can hear you just fine.
I just need my ears on.
Uh-huh.
Shit. That's what's going on.
That's
so
right.
If I was speaking loudly, I am sorry. I couldn't.
That's
tell.
okay. That's okay.
All right.
You know, Dan, I'm not afraid to give people a little bit of feedback. Like,
What?
Hey, Dan, you're talking too loud. Pipe it down.
I did not know that about you.
So I brought the clipboard of doom. The clipboard of doom. But before I get into anything that's on the clipboard here, Dan, what's going on, man? How you been? It's been a hot second since we podcasted.
It has been.
Yeah.
It has been.
I'm not sure I even remember. And now Mike has changed everything up. We got a whole different venue, right?
We do.
We're at the other end of the laboratory here.
That was my fault, though, because when we originally said Wednesdays, I forgot that Wednesdays Dr. Sean's in here.
Right.
I didn't want to take up his.
So it's super distracting, right? I get all the foot traffic coming in through the liquor store window. I get all the foot traffic coming in through Mad Lab. I'm going to be a hot mess today.
But you know what it is? It's a test.
I know. I got to buckle down and have a little
Alex, this
self-discipline.
whole podcast isn't even about podcasting. It's about testing you.
Oh man! And here at the lab, we're not about physical training. We're teaching the art of commitment. Right? And self-discipline.
That's
right?
it.
So I'm going to do my best. I got so many things I want to talk about, Dan. And if you just turn me loose, I will go and go and go until Mike holds up the 45-minute sign, and you won't have had anything, right? So I'm going to give you first shot. Where do you want to go today?
Well, I was going to say Mike had questions for us, but I want to also. I'm curious what you've got going on.
Well, okay, so
how do we do this?
So let me just tell you what. Let me just go talk to you a little bit about a phase I'm going through. Right, I'm going through a phase.
I like
Dan.
this already.
I thought when I hit 60 I'd stop going through phases, but all of a sudden I'm in a phase, right? And my phase is working with the AI chatbots.
Oh, I like this.
Right, and I'm really digging it, right? Because
yes.
I've found a bot that I like to work with a lot. It's called ChatGPT.
I use it all the time.
Right, and I've got the memory function dialed in right now, so that it knows who I am, it recognizes me, and it responds in a way that I want to be responded to. Right, so
sure.
Yeah, but it's weird, right? Because the algorithm's so good that it's almost like I'm talking to a person.
Can you describe for people what ChatGPT is?
Okay, so
they know what you're talking about,
right?
Because it is super interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so we call it AI. Okay, artificial intelligence. It's not, but that's the buzzword that people are using these days. It's a computer program that responds to you. So You ask it questions, it gives you answers. You tell it what you're thinking, you tell it what you're thinking, it comes back with, questions back to you, like,
Sure.
Well, why do you think you're feeling that way? So, I don't know. I think everybody uses it a little bit differently.
Does it not teach itself as it goes?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a whole field of computer science called machine learning.
Yes.
Right? And, basically, yeah, it teaches itself. I think that's, I don't know very much about machine learning, but it's an oversimplification to say that it simply teaches itself, right? I got into this thing with my nephew about something called vector databases, and the whole science about like what makes a good chat response and what doesn't is actually pretty complex, and it's outside my
believe
tech
that
knowledge,
too.
right? But basically the algorithm thinks about the question, thinks about the answer, and compares it to previous questions and answers to see if it's similar or not. So, it's not artificial intelligence. It's just brutal, massive computing power applied to an algorithm. So
Sure.
that
makes sense to
I
me.
don't want anybody to get like all wound up about Skynet or anything, but
Right.
So I'm going through a phase, right, with the chat bot right now, and I think a lot of people, it's like anything. If you don't know how to use it, it's easy to dismiss. But once you learn how to use it, it's a lot of fun. So I ask this thing questions all the time. So I was sitting in the parking lot and I said, "Hey, chat, what do you think I should talk about today?" It said, "Well, based on all the stuff that you seem to be interested in right now, here's a list of topics," right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And so, like I sent you a picture the other day of a caterpillar being basically eaten alive by wasp larvae,
Yeah.
right? And it was pretty brutal, and I showed that to the chatbot. I said, "What do you think about this?" And we talked a little bit back and forth, and it asked me, "Well, what do you think about it?" And I said, it's like a memento mori. Are you familiar with that phrase, memento mori? Apparently, it means you too will die. Okay. And I know we've talked about that. And not you, Dan.
I'm not
you,
going to bring it up.
But like the way the legend goes is, Caesar had this person that would stand beside him or stand behind him, and whenever there was a giant parade, this person would whisper in Caesar's ear, "Don't forget, you too will die someday," right? And
Was it Brutus?
I don't know. No, that is a whole different topic, right? Beware.
Beware.
The odds of March.
That's
okay?
it.
Anyway, so, I was like, I got to thinking about this. I was like, like, it's easy to sit here and be a spectator around things like that. Like, oh, that's really cool. Look at the wasp eating the caterpillar, right?
Right.
And it's easy to think about that as a spectator, but to me, I'm like, I go out there hiking all the time. I'm always putting myself at risk. My life is
Especially fairly recently.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, it even happened again yesterday, right? And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I'm just reminded that like it's so easy to sit in a comfy chair and be a spectator to everything that's going on around you, and you forget all the time you're actually in the middle of it, right? And,
Yeah.
like the minute you get behind the wheel of a car, the minute you walk outside by yourself, right? Anything could happen, right? So so here's what happened, right? Alex the dumb shit goes on a hike by himself, and he decides to take a path he's never been down before. In fact, a path.
Where were you?
I was at Morgan Run.
Okay.
And I'm out there. I'm like 2 miles into the bush, and I'm like, the map says there's a path here, and I don't see it. Right? So I walk a little bit farther, and I'm like, this looks like it might have been a path once upon a time, but it's highly overgrown. I'm going to take it, right? Because that's the way I am, right? I got an attitude problem. So I take the path less followed, and I'm a quarter mile down the road, down the path here. I'm practically up to my waist in weeds, and there's a tree laying across the
We can't do this again.
Yeah, I did it. There's a tree laying, and I'm like, okay, it's just one tree, right? And I climb over the tree, and there's another tree. And I'm like, I can't climb over it. It's way too tangled. And the reason it's like I'm looking around, is this tornado damage? Am I like walking into a death trap? No, you're not. It's one tree, but you're going to have to go around it through basically impenetrable brush, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in my shorts, I'm in a t-shirt, I'm just like grinding through this impenetrable brush. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I go down here, if I like slip and break my ankle, or if I fall down and cut myself badly and I bleed out, no one's going to know. I mean, I'm doing it all over again, right? And so that's what happened.
For those of you who don't know, he did do this. What, it was a month ago, 2 months ago?
It was a month ago.
Something like
call
that.
it a month ago.
There was some tornado damage by the reservoir, and Alex was hiking back there. You're probably, how far out are you from your car?
I was 3 miles in one direction and 5 miles in the other direction. I was 5 miles away from the car that I left. Yeah.
And he sees all of this tornado damage. There's trees down everywhere. So Alex is like, time to go through the obstacle. Takes it as a challenge, goes over these trees. These trees are over some brush, and you can't really see where the ground is. And it's probably like a 7 or 8 foot drop.
Yeah.
Is what he found out the hard way. So
Yeah.
stumbled off of a tree.
Right. And Dan, you know, it just goes to show some people never learn, okay?
Big bruise in the inside of your thigh by your femoral artery.
Right,
Because if a branch goes through there,
You're going to bleed out
look,
before you even have time to make the call.
I'm
okay?
a believer in the immortal Alex, but even I kind of look at that one and be like, that's a tough day.
It's a tough day.
Yeah.
So anyway, there I was getting into it. So this is all a preamble to what are we talking about today, right?
That's it.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about was resilience. Okay.
Okay.
And so I was having a chat with the chatbot yesterday, talking about.
Did you name the chatbot? Because you can name it.
Yeah, you can, but I haven't found a name that I like yet.
It's suitable.
Right? And I don't know. Like, I don't know. I just haven't named the chatbot. Right. I prefer to leave it just as chat. Like,
I
good
haven't
morning,
named
chat.
it
How are
either.
you doing? You know.
I always say hello to it all the time.
Yeah.
But I thank it, but I never name it.
Right.
I think one time I named it early on, but I don't
Yeah,
remember.
we're a long way from Skynet, you know.
True.
And I'm concerned that if I name it, you know, my wife is going to be like, "Are you like forming like some sort of romantic relationship with a robot or a computer program?"
You're like, its
Like,
name is
"What?"
Captain Kirk. Relax.
No. Yeah, like I would prefer to name it like a female name. I don't know. It just feels better to me that way, but I'm not going to do that, right?
Okay.
Anyway, so we were talking about resilience, right? And you know, like memento mori, and you know, caterpillars getting eaten by wasps and things like that. And I got to thinking about like resilience then versus now. Okay. Now that's something that's on my mind, but I also don't want to preempt Mike's questions, because he said Mike has some questions he wants to ask us today, and like, I don't know, do we have producer Mike, do we have a list of questions that need to be answered before I continue on my monologue?
I don't care.
Well, do you have questions, Mike?
Yeah, and I had Jules actually pick them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
You want to go with this, Dan? You want to go with the
Let's
questions?
go one and then one. You want to go back and forth?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's start with this one.
All right.
What's the most interesting place you've ever visited, and what made it memorable?
Is that to me, Dan?
It is to you.
Okay.
I feel like you have some good answers for this.
Yeah, okay. So I like going places where I've never been before, for starters, right? And
We already talked about your adventurous spirit, so I
Yeah.
only imagine.
so a place that I visited that was memorable, you know, it's tricky, because I will be the only person that has this memory, right? And I would have to say it's someplace I've been recently that's outdoors, that is, okay, there's the 15-minute card on the floor, right? Okay, we're 15 minutes in. You know, like I when I was younger, I used to enjoy exploring abandoned buildings, right?
Okay.
And I've had this sort of like this catchphrase in my mind for a really long time: seldom visited places. And I like to take pictures, and I like to compose sort of like photo essays of things that I do or things that I'm thinking and places I've been. And here was this one, seldom visited places. And I have like this, I don't know, 40 or 50 photographs of places that I've been that have not been visited by other humans for a very long time. Now, I can't say for certain if I've ever been someplace no one's been before. It seems unlikely, right? And I've done my share of exploring, but like going in abandoned buildings, clearly tons of people have been there before, right? But
Sure.
I don't know, even out in nature, I feel like sometimes okay, this is really cool. I'm the only person that's having this experience right now, but other people have been here, right? You can tell because there's a trail or whatever, right? So for me, Dan, it's just that it's a place I've never been before, and you can fill in the blank. Any place I go, it's always interesting to me, and it's interesting because I've never been there, right? Okay, even places that I've been before, I hike at Morgan Run a lot,
Yeah.
right? And yesterday I was hiking, and you can tell there's a little change in the air. It's cooling down a little bit. Some of the undergrowth is dying back a little bit because fall is on its way. And there was a single red leaf laying on the ground, like autumn, And I don't know if that was on camera or not. A dog just ran through the set. That was awesome. But for me, Dan, that's it. Seldom visited places that I've been before, but I've never been there in that context, and memorable simply because it's new, right?
Okay.
That's my answer, right? I could easily say, the Louvre, that changed my life. I went and saw the Mona Lisa. No, that's not my thing.
So mine would be, and this is what just pops into my head, because this was had a giant imprint on me at the time, and then also afterwards for two completely different reasons.
Okay.
Where I thought something out of control was happening.
Yeah.
So, do you know where Triadelphia Reservoir is?
Sure.
All right. So not really an outstanding place on its own, but I had a friend who two of my friends swore that there was supernatural activity happening there.
Cool. So you had to go find out, right?
Had to go find out, right? So they swear to me up and down. And is it two guys that aren't they've never said this before about anything. However, they also really like to smoke a lot of pot.
Okay.
And that's where they would go out there for. Mm-hmm. So then it's are you guys really? They're talking about explosions in the water. They're there at 11 at night. Explosions happening in the water. They're talking about weird creatures like dogs running around and all this crazy stuff happening. Noise in the forest. I'm all that probably can be explained, and some of it is probably just them just being in the state that they are. Right. Yeah. So I was working at a local convenience store at the time, and so I was supposed to be on my shift. And one of my friends is I was working with him. He's I'll cover for you. Go find out what's happening.
Oh, okay.
So I go, one of them. So one of them was my friend Jordan. The other one was my friend Matt. So I go out there with Jordan. It's 11 or 12 at night. So it's late at night. We pull up there, and he's all right, let's go through the woods a little bit. We go through the woods. It's dark. It's a little bit creepy because of what he was saying, but nothing out of control. You hear a lot of stuff happening, branches cracking, but there's also a lot of woodland creatures. Right. So I'm all right, whatever. He's all right. We need to go. Let's just go back and we'll sit on this bench, and then you're gonna see the stuff happening in the water. And I was what would happen even in the water at this time?
Right.
So we go by the bench, and on the bench is, I'm not kidding you, a voodoo doll. It looks exactly like a voodoo doll.
Okay.
And my friend Jordan is just he's I don't know I've never seen this here before. This wasn't part of whatever. And I was now I'm starting to be a little weird because it looks weird.
You're right.
It's just like a voodoo doll.
The hairs are standing up on your arms.
Yeah, so I was all right, it's a little weird. Right behind us, I'm not kidding, is just an explosion of water. And there's nothing, no one can throw stuff from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody would have to be there and throw a rock right where we are. We're the only ones that we're not even supposed to be there at all. Explosion in the water. My friend Jordan's let's get the F out of here, and just runs.
Yeah.
Just takes off, and I'm
and now you're alone.
Yeah,
with the voodoo doll.
So I run after him. We get in my car, and he's I don't know what that was. And I'm now I'm kind of creeped out. I'm what could possibly be happening?
Right.
I go back 2 more times with people.
Yeah.
All right. So one time, again, it happens. Bunch of explosions. So I started to see what happens, and it's just there's just explosions of water. It seems like somebody's throwing giant rocks and they're just hitting the water. It's just it's a whole phenomenon.
Right.
So now we're really freaked out. We go up there again with weapons, because like we have like little hammers and stuff, like, you know, just like kids would.
Right.
So we go there. Me and my friend Justin go there this time.
Wait, there's voodoo in the air. I'll bring a hammer.
Right. It makes sense. Bring a blunt weapon to fight stuff with.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
I feel like you could hit a ghost with a hammer or something.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah, well, it did. But so we go up there, and me and my friend Justin go, and I'm telling you, this is what happens. One time we saw a voodoo doll. I never saw the voodoo doll again.
Right.
We come up to it, right? There's like a little boat ramp kind of thing. You hear the explosions, so we're like, oh man, and then all of a sudden a creature explodes out of the water. Just like a dark form comes at us. And so we're just like, back up, and then you can just see the dark form sitting there, but we can't see what it is. And Justin is finally like, well, I think we need to get out of here. And then all of a sudden it just turns, it's gone. And I'm like, that thing was pretty big. It was like a dark form that came out that was like sizable, and it just kind of exploded out of the water and stood there. And it's dark, you can't see behind it because it's not really a moon out or anything. So then I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. So we leave. This time, the next time, this is probably in 2 weeks.
So you guys keep going back at night?
Yes.
Okay. Big mistake.
Because it's a human thing of, you are scared of the unknown, but also you need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like the two things are warring with each other. We go back there. This time we all have weapons. There's 4 of us.
Do you guys have like flashlights and stuff, or?
Yeah, probably. I don't remember if we did or not.
Okay.
Because I'm not a big flashlight person at night.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to have night vision. Also, if there's something looking for us and it has light,
absolutely.
I want it to lose its night. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be part of that. So I'm not sure, but maybe we did. I don't remember.
Right.
I do remember trying to go through the forest, holding these weapons. Things are exploding in the water. Like, everything's now super creepy because our minds have made it so creepy. I was so scared of this place, Alex. On the drive there, I literally had tears in my eyes because I was so afraid. But I was like, we're going.
I have tears in my eyes right now.
So I lead this expedition through the woods. Like, we're going through, explosions are happening, but nothing else we're finding. It's just creepy. We get back, and there's a police officer there, and he's a ranger, and he's like, "Oh, hi, Iggy," and he's a ranger, and he's like, "You guys, why are you guys here? You guys are trespassing." Da da da. So we like word vomit to him about all the stuff that's happening, and he just keeps looking at us, and his eyes just keep getting wider, and he's like, "So you're saying that you guys are here at night, by water, and you're having explosions in the water when you guys get close to the water?" And we're like, yeah, that's what's happening. There's like no way that there could be stones thrown in here. It's like, well, gentlemen, have you guys heard of beavers? And we felt so stupid. We just all like stood there. We had he just started laughing his ass off at us. And we're just like, because at the time there was no way to describe it. Like, it just was, we would bring people there and they had nothing to say about it. They were just like, oh my God, this is scary. Like, what is going on? It's chaos. And there's no explanation. And that was it. The beavers, apparently, they're very territorial.
Yep.
When you go there, they flip upside down and they smack their tail on the water.
Right.
Which is the explosion.
Yep. Now, okay, so...
Iggy, no.
So, like, I have a military background. And so when you say explosions, like, I'm thinking of, like, military scale explosions. No. And I'm, like, laughing because, like, I don't know. I've spent so much time out in the woods at night. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a beaver. I would have...
Probably would.
When you said...
You would have known that probably right away.
I might have.
But if you did not know anything about that beavers do that, and you just saw, and you can't see what's happening, you just see it, like, water is, it's like I took a rock this big and I launched it like 15 feet in the air, and then it just exploded down. Yeah. It's wild and loud, and it's like totally still, and then all of a sudden it's like, go, and you're just like,
because the beaver's diving too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get it. That's awesome.
And what came out of the water was a beaver.
Yeah. Okay, so again, I'm thinking like, something came out of the water that's like bigger than like a person. Like,
no, it was like this big.
Yeah, okay, right? Yeah. So like you like the whole story.
But again, if you have it in your mind,
I know.
You know what I'm saying? But it's so crazy to me that like 4 like grown adult guys, we're like 19 years old, all in good shape and stuff, are like completely terrified of whatever is going on. and then you find out about it, you feel so dumb. But it's like it's such a wild way that the mind can just run away with stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's, to me, that's a very memorable place
Dan,
for that.
my mind has never run away with a crazy idea before. Sorry.
Right. So that would be my answer to that question.
That's awesome. I love it. What a story.
It's something.
Mike, what's next?
Let's hear what Alex is.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So resilience, right? We're
Yeah.
talking. I wanted to launch into resilience. So,
We weren't very resilient. On that story.
yeah. Well, I mean, you were in a way, Dan, because you guys went back, right?
We did.
You were resilient, and tenacity, curiosity. Those are they're right in there with resilience.
And now I'm
right?
going to run a whole political platform on beavers.
Well,
No more running water.
You might you might want to build a political platform on resilience and tenacity. Okay.
They're pretty resilient.
So I got to thinking about this though, because the context of my resilience comment was nature, right? And like in nature, everything is predator and prey at the same time, right?
Sure.
And it's not pretty, right? Somebody's getting eggs laid inside of it. It's like right out of an alien movie, That's what nature's like all the time. I was showing you the pictures of plants grinding rocks into dust.
I can't think of something more terrifying than knowing that you have eggs in you and they are starting to hatch.
Yeah. So that's, okay. So Dan, I don't mean to freak you out on this, but like,
I'm resilient.
I know you are, and it's a good thing you are, because like our bodies are covered in creatures,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, they are. We're made up of creatures, really.
Yeah,
if you think
we
about
are, and like your insides, your guts are full of bacteria that actually keep you healthy, right? So long as you treat them right, okay? And then if you don't treat them right, then they become like the alien.
Which is kind of a wild thing, because if your body is made up of all these organisms, which it is,
Yeah.
you technically are almost like a god of your own body. And I think you do have a responsibility to your own body, right? Because there's a lot of living creatures, so it's like you are a planet structure.
Yeah.
And you have a say on everything that's going to happen to all these organisms. If
Yeah,
people make some wild decisions.
Yeah, people make a lot of bad decisions.
Yeah.
But so resilience, right? Resilience then and now. I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts about what resilience looks like, today. What are the characteristics of a resilient person?
Are we saying versus another time?
Yeah. And I'll give
Today versus when?
when my mother was born, 1935. And the reason I picked that is that's an interesting story, right?
Okay.
You want to hear the story,
I do want to hear the story, yes.
or do you want to give the answer first?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at that time, for sure. We just came a couple years before we came out of the Great Depression.
Right.
We had a lot of different laws and mandates and stuff are happening. There's a lot of turmoil in the world, right? You have world wars happening.
Yeah.
A lot is going on.
There was no social safety net at all, right? There was no Social Security. There was no Medicare or Medicaid, right? If you could die in the streets and there'd be no system to take care of you, right?
Sure.
There was no safety net out there.
But also,
there were no antibiotics.
If
Dan.
you just had a job and worked it, you would own a home.
That's not necessarily so, right? If your job, like there were jobs of sweeping warehouses with a broom. I'm not sure that's going to get you a house, right?
True, but that also doesn't get you a house now.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of jobs, if comparable, and this is all arguable, all right. But I just looked at this fairly recently, and I looked at like inflation and like what. And some of these equations are probably imperfect.
30-minute warning.
They're probably imperfect, but the difference in what like somebody that would make like a whatever job then. So like I was like, well, what would be people would consider like, all right, what would like a $60,000 a year be like back then? What would $80,000 a year be like back then? And the differences were crazy.
Yeah, sure.
Crazy. So I think there's just some I think that we all end up, I think resilience shows itself the same way in every generation. I think there's just different things going on.
I love that answer.
Because I don't think that humans evolve they don't evolve very quickly.
The context is different, but the background, the foundation is still the same.
Yes.
Right? So my mother, born in rural West Virginia in 1935, born in the house that she was raised in, right? Mm-hmm. She was born at home, right? There was no doctor present. There were no antibiotics back then. People primarily made their living coal mining or working for a lumber company or some dangerous professions. Infant mortality rates were high. Your peer group was short-lived, largely uneducated. It was a brutal time. And here's my mom, right? She rose above it somehow or another. She got an education. She left that situation. She went to the university, went on to have a solo career, and then married a guy, my dad, who was pretty successful too. Came from much the same circumstances, and yeah, they were resilient, right? And I'm just curious. Like, we live in challenging times. We have always lived in challenging times. So what can we teach people to help them be more resilient, right? And I think there's a life lesson there. I haven't quite pulled it all apart, but I think
the only way to teach people to be more resilient is put them in a situation where they must be resilient.
Yeah.
That throughout history, that's the only way to have that happen.
I mean, I like that answer too, Dan. You know, but I've always said history is written by the winners, right? And so, you know, our data set is only going to be the people that lived, right?
That's awesome.
So if you put people in a challenging situation, some of them are going to die.
Yes.
Some of them are not going to make it. They're going to fail. Okay?
Yes.
Maybe dying's too extreme, but you know, like, you know, the cream rises to the top, and yeah, I'm curious, like. I mean, I'm interested in what happens to the people that don't make it, but I am interested in like what makes people resilient.
So this is actually a really good question, because this goes into a bunch of different things, right?
Yeah.
So one, I feel like resilience is super important. Therefore, adversity is very important. And resilience is really how you overcome or how you meet adversity, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's how you deal with it, right? And then whatever scale that is versus everybody else. That considers if somebody is like very resilient, or they're just like fairly resilient, or they're not resilient in any way, right? Yeah. When I hire people, one of the things I look for is some kind of overcoming of adversity.
Right.
So have you ever heard of, like, you know, people have IQ and EQ, so like intelligence quotient and emotional quotient.
Yeah.
Well, then there's also like people started hiring based off of an adversity quotient.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't scale it at all. I just look for things that have happened, and if I ask somebody, you know, like, give me a time that you've done whatever, and like when you've made a mistake, what did you do about it, or, you know, something like that. If they don't really give me a mistake, or they give me something that was like really small, and they also give me nothing that they did about it, I'm not super interested in them, right?
Yeah.
If they tell me like some in-depth crazy story where they're just like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and I felt this way about it, and it was so like trying and worrisome, and then I'm like, well, what'd you do about it? And like this, and this. What'd you learn from it? This, and this.
Right.
Now I'm interested.
Right.
And I think the problem with that is that you need that, but then you can't. It's almost like you can't set up a scenario, and if you do start setting up a scenario that way, I mean, books are written and movies are made on that, and that starts to get very questionable, right? You can't just start like a whole thing where like we're gonna put them through the gauntlet, you know, like.
Yeah. Well, okay,
societies have.
Is going to the gym a moral equivalent to programmed adversity?
So, yeah, in a way. I don't know if it's nice to. It's a good start to have to work through something.
Yeah.
Right? I think like exercise and like difficult exercise every once in a while is a safe way to create adversity for like kids that are maturing and stuff like that. Like, I think that's important. So then can you work through something hard?
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's a good start. So maybe there is like a sliding scale that you know, I don't know if it has to be, look, on your 16th birthday, we're going to take you 4 miles out in the woods, blindfolded. We're going to give you a spear, and you will come back with a bear, living or dead. It's either your friend or you've killed it. You know, like, but you need to come back with a bear. You know,
On
I don't
a
know
leash?
if that's it. I don't know if that's it.
On a leash or on a bun. I don't care.
On a leash or on a bun. You know, I don't know if it has to be, but maybe it does have to be that. I don't have a good exact answer for that. I just know that it's important.
Yeah.
There's also an argument for anybody that would, and like, you know, if you believe in a higher power, then it's like, do you need to set things up because is the world or whatever you believe setting it up for you, right? Does it set it up for everybody, and then people choose if they're going to take that path or if they're not? And if they're not, they're gonna struggle in a whole different way that's probably gonna be much worse. If they do take it, yes, they will struggle, but they will learn from it, they'll grow, and then ideally they'll become the person that they're supposed to become and reach their potential and be able to be fulfilled and all those things.
Nice.
So that's my thoughts on resiliency.
I love it.
Thank
Wow. That's incredible. I got nothing left. I don't know where to go with that. All right.
I thought it was a great thing to bring up. And I also love that you brought up ChatGPT because I use it all the time.
Right.
So I use it to help me write because I'll have it organized thoughts and then I'll go through and then correct whatever.
Yeah.
I even taught my son how to use it just recently.
Right.
I had him write a paper on using ChatGPT. I had him write a paper on consistent themes in history and human history, right? Because I think that's important. I also think that's the way that we should start teaching history in schools is themes of history because that's what is important.
I love it. Okay, so teaching history, right?
Yes.
I'm reading. I have been reading The Education of Henry Adams, right?
Okay, cool.
So Henry Adams was the, grandson of John Quincy Adams and the great-grandson of John Adams, two presidents. And he was born in like 1848 or something like that, okay? And he grew up to be a historian, not a politician. But he took this almost scientific approach to history. He said history is the study of forces. Force, like magnetic force or electrical force or steam power and things like that. How forces project themselves across nations and across groups of people and things like that, rather than like just dates and the names of kings and the names of countries. He's talking about what are the forces that drove people and societies and nations to behave the way they did.
Well, that would be like
super interesting approach to history.
It is, but that's like a technology approach to history, right?
Almost, yeah. But I mean, like in the 1800s, like for an idea like that. Like, okay, yeah, everybody knows. Like, what was I used to know this. When was the Magna Carta? What was that, 1055 or something,
no idea.
right? It was something like that. The Magna Carta. Okay, that's an important thing. Everybody wants you to remember that in your history class. But why was it important? And that was kind of Henry Adams' approach to history. Who cares about the date? What was going on that caused something like this to happen, and why was it so doggone important?
Well, maybe that is more important though, because so like my thinking was. Human behavior is like cyclical, right? And like the same issues are going to happen regardless.
Like resilience, right?
Right. Yeah. Like you're going to have wars that are fought over supposedly X, Y, and Z when really it's these things, and you find out years later. But then things are happening now, and then you're like, well, shouldn't I look back in history and be like, here are the themes. Here's probably what's happening in. But they're like, no, it's all new because it's when we're living. And like, that's not how it works.
There's nothing new, man.
But technology is a very interesting thing to me because you've had a lot of giant events in history. For example, like technically we don't have a whole lot of history before the Bronze Age, right? I think that works. And then the Bronze Age hits, and all of a sudden technology explodes. Right? And then you have like bronze and iron, and like all this stuff happens. And then people start creating like art all over the place, and like people are writing and like
alphabets and
things
numbers
just go nuts, right? You have like the whole Egyptian technology that still people don't fully understand, like how that all happened. That's gonna be a whole different thing,
different episode.
And you get like when we get the Industrial Revolution, right? That was like late 1800s, correct? Somewhere in there.
Yeah, you're on it.
So then you have that happen, and then all of a sudden you have just like a big boom. You're starting to get like cars, and people are starting to like, the Wright brothers are like, let's fly stuff, right? Like all sorts of wild shit happens in those times. Right now, I think is one of those times where it's like we have maybe it's AI, maybe it's machine learning, whatever, but we have that, and in a small amount of time, I think somebody said that there was like, with that one technology, we have, that always just cracks me up. With that one technology, we've never in any other technology had that much advancement in such a short time.
Yeah,
which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Nothing you do with ChatGPT, you could do 2 years ago.
By the way, might point out the random questions for the past 2 weeks have been coming from ChatGPT.
Well, no kidding. How about that?
It's all connected. Is what I was trying to say.
Hey guys, the 40-minute.
Is that the 40-minute?
That's the 40-minute. The flag just flew. I think we're drawing to the end of the episode. So I don't want to let this episode finish up without doing a shout out. And Dan, I got a shout out today.
Oh.
My friends over at Broho Corner Grill.
I still haven't gone yet.
Okay.
Please tell me about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we're very excited about this.
Okay. So first of all, they make great sandwiches. Okay.
I love a great sandwich. One of my favorite foods.
I went over there today and got a Sammy for lunch. It was a good Sammy.
They have cool names for them, too.
They
right?
do. And the guys that work there are nice. In fact, the guy that was working there today, I guess it was his daughter working the cash register. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old.
Ah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
And he was trying to teach her how to make change and do basic customer service. So it's
That's
obviously
cool.
a family operation, right?
Sure.
So my shout out today is going to Broho.
Where is it?
Okay, if you go down Liberty Road, like you're going down into Randallstown,
Yes.
it's right there. You cross the first bridge, and it's right there at Oakland Mills.
Perfect.
There you go, Broho.
Everybody needs to go there. I always got to shout out my friends at CNA Auto.
Hit it.
And my buddy Adam, who runs it. He's a client of Mad Lab. You got anything going on with your vehicle, engine catches on fire, just you need some general maintenance, or you hear some weird noises or some weird lights come on, you don't know what they mean. Take them to my friends at CNA on Auto. Tell them that Dan sent you from Mad Lab. They'll take care of you. They'll make you feel right at home. The price will be right. Everything will be great.
That's awesome. CNA Auto.
CNA Auto.
We got it all.
We got it all. Alex,
Hey,
you're the man.
I'm nobody. I'm just some guy.
That's
but
not
thanks
true,
for
man.
saying so.
But where are we going?
Hey, Dan, we're only going one place, and that's straight to the top,
Straight
baby.
to the top, baby. Thank you, guys.